Welcome to this week's episode of Whether or Not. We have a great show ahead for you folks. In Nature in the News, we have a bunch of stories about a new planet possibly and some blue whale tracking. Then Brian has an interesting update for us on our weekend ahead. Finally, Allie has a feature on Walker Building here in campuses and their weather observers. All that and much, much more starting right now. Welcome, everybody, to this amazing episode of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Drew Narsutis.
And I'm your forecaster, Brian Cizek.
So, Brian, it's the second week of the school year, or the semester at least, and not too bad, all things considered.
Nope, I mean, we had a little bit of snow last weekend and some freezing rain mixed in at the end, but those colder temperatures have moved down, and we're in a bit of a warm pattern right now.
We are indeed, and I know you're headed off to the AMS conference, or American Meteorological Society. How is your weather going to be like over there for the upcoming weekend?
Yep, I'm headed out with a group of Penn State meteorology students on Saturday out to Seattle, Washington. And we can expect some cold and rainy temperatures out there, typical for Seattle this time of year. But as for your forecast for the State College area, I'll have details on that coming up later in the show.
There you go. Sounds like a great idea. Well, now it's time for another great idea, and it's called Nature in the News.
A new forecasting tool aims to keep ships from colliding with the world's largest animals, blue whales. It will help researchers predict blue whale traffic in the Pacific as they make their annual migration by taking their movements and combining it with remotely sensed oceanographic data to find out not only where they go, but some of the conditions that trigger their movement. They can then post online maps showing hotspots that will help ship captains avoid collisions with the whales. Previously, scientists relied on maps of tagged blue whales to show the routes they had traveled, but this is the first time they can project where they will be in the future. This will allow regulators to impose closures or ship speed limits in areas identified as blue whale hotspots.
Planet Nine's days of lurking unseen in the dark depths of the outer solar system may be numbered. The hypothetical giant planet will hopefully be discovered within 16 months or so, astronomer Mike Brown predicts. Brown reported that about 9 groups are currently out looking for the planet and that they are homing in pretty quickly. The existence of Planet 9 was first officially proposed in 2014 by astronomers Scott Shepard and Chad Tedrillo. The scientists noted that dwarf planets and several other bodies far beyond Pluto share certain odd orbital characteristics, a coincidence that would make sense if their paths through space had been shaped by an unseen giant in the region. With all 9 groups agreeing with the findings, the search seems that it will yield successful results soon.
This week, scientists reported that Earth reached its highest average temperature on record in 2016. This beat the previous record set in 2015, which beat the previous record set in 2014. It is the first time in the modern era of global warming data that temperatures have surpassed the previous record 3 years in a row. In 2015 and 2016, the weather pattern El Nino, which originates from the warmer than average waters in the Pacific, intensified the warming pattern. However, the largest factor in setting these records was the long-term trend of rising temperatures due to the increasing levels of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. Looking ahead to 2017, most scientists expect this record streak to end due to a weakening of the El Nino pattern.
At least 6 people died after ice storms wreaked havoc throughout the Midwest earlier this week. States like Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Texas experienced a barrage of sleet, ice, and freezing rain. The deaths have been blamed on slick travel conditions caused by the storm since Friday. The storm has knocked out power and damaged trees in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, while coating trees and roads in ice. The governors of Oklahoma and Missouri declared states of national emergency, while the National Guard patrolled roads in Missouri and Kansas.
Hello, I am Brian Cizek with your Central Pennsylvania forecast. Now, checking out the map on Friday, the story is this high pressure system moves its way off the coast, and that was in our area on Thursday, but that moves its way out, and the story becomes this low pressure system that's over Illinois, and that will bring some precipitation associated with it. Now, it will all be in the form of rain. Temperatures not quite cold enough to bring any frozen precipitation with that. But into Saturday, that low will move off the Atlantic coast, down off the Carolinas, and all the precipitation associated with that also moves out. And we will have some overcast skies, and there might be a little bit of lingering moisture, but not enough to bring us any precipitation. And for a little bit of foreshadowing, we could see this low out of the Midwest, and that's going to be stronger than the one that just moved off the Atlantic. So that will be moving its way. That'll start to move down south and eventually up the Atlantic coast. So now let's check out your Sunday. There's that low pressure system I was talking about, and here's the area of precipitation with that. And in State College, going to start off as overcast, but as the day progresses, that's when we are going to see the periods of rain start to move in and into your Monday. So if you have a case of the Mondays, probably this low pressure system is not going to help that much at all. Now looking at your forecast for Friday, 40 degrees, periods of rain throughout the day and into the evening hours. But as we go into the overnight hours, that precipitation moves out, but we will still have those clouds. Temperatures not really dropping much below the high for the day, just 37 degrees overnight. And those clouds, lingering clouds, are what's going to keep those temperatures above the freezing point. So the rain moves out. And into Saturday, we're going to have a very mild day for this time of year, over 10 degrees above average and overcast skies, so we're not going to see the sun peek out, but still overall a fairly nice day for your Saturday outdoor activities. But then Sunday, we have more rain move into the area. That low pressure system come from the Midwest is going to come down south, up the Atlantic coast, and we're going to see some rain move in the afternoon, and that will persist into the work week. Now, why don't we go to Debicki with a feature on weather observers on the Walker Building.
The Weather Center here in the Walker Building is not only just a safe haven for students and teachers alike. It is actually an official National Weather Service observing site. Several students take part in completing weather observations in the morning, afternoon, and evening for the National Weather Service. Come take a closer look at the step-by-step process and the importance behind tower workers here at Penn State.
Penn State Meteorology has conducted official weather observations for the National Weather Service at the Walker Building Weather Center for over 30 years. Bill Syret, a senior lecturer and manager of the Joel N. Myers Weather Center, supervises the tower workers as they observe and report current weather locally for the National Weather Service. He explains that this site is just as comparable to sites across the United States.
So we have to follow standards. The thermometers have to be a certain height off the ground. We have to shield our rain gauge from the wind so that it's measuring as accurately as possible. And we need to hire people to do the measurements that have a good brain and an aptitude for detail.
Over time, meteorology students began to get involved with recording observations. The tower working students take down daily weather conditions, temperature maxima and minima, dew point temperatures, and range gain rain or snow totals. So how would a regular observation shift be conducted? Well, the first shift begins early on in the morning, around 7 a.m. local time during the winter months. First, observations are taken from the Davis and MMT machines located in a small room within the Weather Center. There, temperature values and pressure changes over the last 3 hours can be recorded. More temperature observations are then recorded using thermometers at the ground level outside of the Walker Building on the north side. This includes the maximum, minimum, set temperature, and overnight low temperatures that occurred outside. Another key observation taken outside is the wet bulb temperature. This is the temperature a piece of air would have if it were cooled to saturation, or 100% relative humidity, by the evaporation of water into it. This is taken by swinging a sling psychrometer out front of the building for several minutes. Observations then taken inside the Weather Center include pressure values. Here, the corrected pressure and the sea level pressure for the day are determined using the barograph located behind the TV wall. Some more observations include the dew point temperature and relative humidity, found by rotating a psychrometer computer seen here, using temperature and pressure observations found in the earlier process. The final observations are then recorded from the top of the Walker Building. These include the current visibility, sky conditions, precipitation type, and amount found in the rain gauge. The later shifts at noon and 7 p.m. only require that the current sky conditions and visibility are recorded for continuity throughout the observation period. With such a standardized process, many of the tower workers must take their time to produce the greatest amount of accuracy within their findings. Correct observation data is crucial and what makes the tower working job so important. Bill provides insight on the importance of the students' attention to detail as they are completing their observations.
I mean, accuracy is critical. Again, going to the fact that when you're looking at global climate records, each observation is important. You want to be as accurate as possible because globally, when you're talking about a 1 degree change in temperature, that's a huge deal. And a 1 degree error isn't that hard to make if you're not being careful with the observations. So it's critically important that the observers are very careful with the observation procedures.
Even though the tower working process requires strict focus, students have jumped at the opportunity to experience such a well-known observing site.
This weather observing station is a great way for students to get involved and keep up historical data for the entire United States. For Whether or Not, I'm Allie Debicki.
All right, and now let's check out your extended forecast. But first, why don't we take a step back for your weekend recap. 40 degrees for your Friday as we have that area of low pressure system move its way through. And we will have periods of rain throughout the day, but that won't persist too much longer into the overnight hours on your Friday night and into Saturday, as we will have some overcast skies for Saturday and temperatures quite mild for this time of year. 48 degrees. Sunday, mild again, 46 degrees, but we have that other area of low pressure move its way down south and up the Atlantic coast. So we will see some rain associated with that. Now, why don't we check out the extended forecast? And the first thing that really stands out, look at this. The temperature, the high temperature for your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all above the average for this time of year. So we do have that warm pattern. There will still be some precipitation lingering from that Sunday storm system into your Monday, and then finally drying out on Tuesday, little bit of drizzle on your Wednesday, but nothing too significant, and then drying out for your Thursday and Friday, all remaining above average.
Well, thank you for that forecast, Brian. Thankfully, we will be having some more mild air here in State College while you're off at AMS in Seattle.
Yes, and I don't anticipate any travel issues for the students headed off to the conference or on their way back next weekend either.
Well, that's some good news. And here's another thing we talked about earlier in the show, which is our Weather Whiz quiz question. We asked, since 2000, which winter season featured the warmest January on average in State College? Is it A, 2006, B, 2013, C, 2002, or D, 2010? Well, if you guessed A, you are correct.
State College finished January with an average temperature of 36.2 degrees Fahrenheit back in 2006. Not surprisingly, less than 2 inches of snow fell during this warm winter season, making it the least snowiest winter at State College since 1960.
Well, it does seem like what we're going to be having to deal with in this upcoming week. Not too much snow to talk about, I hear.
Right, not really any snow next week or for the foreseeable future.
Well, that's a good news. Here's some bad news, though. We will have to wrap up the show, unfortunately. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Drew Narsutis.
And I'm your forecaster, Brian Cizek. Have a great weekend.